be no real peace while one American is dying someplace in the world for the rest of us. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. Let me make this an absolute fact. The goal is world peace. That must be our prime responsibility. We are the leader of the free world whether we want to be or not, and therefore we are the only ones that can preserve the peace. And to do that, we must have strength. Meeting this mission, this responsibility for preserving the peace, which I believe is a responsibility peculiar to our country, that we cannot shirk our responsibility as the leader of the free world because we're the only one that can do it. And therefore, the burden of maintaining the peace falls on us. And to maintain that peace requires strength. America has never gotten in a war because we were too strong.
I've always believed that this land was set aside in an uncommon way, that a divine plan placed this great continent between the oceans to be found by a people from every corner of the earth who had a special love of faith, freedom, and peace. Let us reaffirm America's destiny of goodness and goodwill. Let us work for peace. And as we do, let us remember the lines of the famous old hymn, "O God of love, O King of peace, make wars throughout the world to cease."
There's some who've forgotten why we have a military. It's not to promote war. It's to be prepared for peace. There's a sign over the entrance to Fairchild Air Force Base in Washington State. That sign says it all. Peace is our profession. We know only too well that war comes not when the forces of freedom are strong. It is when they are weak that tyrants are tempted. Of all the objectives we seek, first and foremost is the establishment of lasting world peace. But let our friends and those who may wish us ill take note. The United States has an obligation to its citizens and to the people of the world never to let those who would destroy freedom dictate the future course of life on this planet. There are no words to express the extraordinary strength and character of this breed of people we call American. They're concerned, yes. They're not frightened. They're disturbed, but not dismayed. They are the kind of men and women Tom Paine had in mind when he wrote during the darkest days of the American Revolution, "We have it in our power to begin the world over again." Ladies and gentlemen of our armed forces, on behalf of a grateful Commander-in-Chief, I salute you.
Each time a person stands up for an idea or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he or she sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance.
One-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Okay, yes, we are bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money, and that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks? And it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no? See, I keep meeting these people. I mean, just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire. He's a Swedish physicist, Gustav Bjornstrand, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot.
See it? There are only 4 companies. CBS seems to be independent, but is owned by the same billionaire as Viacom. When you give people the illusion of choice, they believe they are free. All you have to do is follow the money.
When I was at Findhorn, I met this extraordinary English tree expert who had devoted his life to saving trees. Just got back from Washington, lobbying to save the redwoods. He's 84 years old. He always travels with a backpack because he never knows where he's going to be tomorrow. And when I met him at Findhorn, he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" I gave him different banal theories. He said, "Oh, I don't think it's that way at all." He said, "I think that New York is the new model for the new concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia, where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have, having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they've made, or to even see it as a prison." And then he went into his pocket and he took out a seed for a tree and he said, "This is a pine tree." He put it in my hand and he said, "Escape before it's too late." See, actually for 2 or 3 years now, Chiquita and I have had this very unpleasant feeling that we really should get out. And we really should feel like Jews in Germany in the late 30s. Get out of here. Of course, the problem is where to go, because it seems quite obvious that the whole world is going in the same direction. See, I think it's quite possible that the 1960s represented the last burst of the human being before he was extinguished. And that this is the beginning of the rest of the future now, and that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing. And there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet.
Undivided allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Americans, American patriots, I'm sure I do not come before you tonight as a complete stranger. You all have heard of me through the Jewish-controlled press as a creature with horns, a cloven hoof, and a long tail. We, with American ideals, demand that our government shall be returned to the American people who founded it.
If you ask what we are actively fighting for under our charter, first, a social just white Gentile who rules the United States. Second, Gentile-controlled labor union, free from Jewish Moscow-directed domination.
Thanks for watching the intro. Pretty crazy, we don't know a lot about our past. I'm not pro-Hitler, but things are always such a gray area, it's hard to see it in black or white. Sometimes you can only see it when you look at the money, and that's what we're going to do in this series. We're going to blow it apart. It's going to make sense for you like it never has before. You're going to want to share this. Here's a quick clip about central banking and book burning I think you should check out.
So when you get a book that's banned, that means there's something in there that you need to know. So this book is called History of Central Banking. What does Hitler, JFK, Lincoln, Gaddafi, Napoleon, Julius Caesar, Tsar Nicholas II have in common? They all tried to do state banking and they all got either killed or thrown into a war.
This series has over 100 clips, all averaging about 2 minutes, so you'll never get bored of a clip. This is over 2 years of active digging every single day and shoving things in different categories. This was a very hard thing to put together, and I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. So it all boils down, it started in 1945 when the Nazi war ended and Operation Paperclip started. Operation Paperclip, real quick, was just basically an operation where the United States took Nazi scientists, moved them into the United States, changed their name because they wanted their intel. Things like MKUltra and other terrible things. As soon as the war with the Nazis ended, the United Nations was found based on a treaty. Operation Paperclip soon led to things like Operation Mockingbird, basically controlling the media through corporations. All of this, there's proof, so much proof in this video. You're gonna love it, it's gonna blow your mind. So in 1945, during the treaty, the United Nations, the UN, was given certain territories of the United States, Alaska and Hawaii. That's why there's that argument about how many states we actually have. And they were actually given the island of Manhattan and New York. New York does not own Manhattan. The United States does not own Manhattan. That's the United Nations owned from us. Check out this clip explaining it.
Out of all of our enemies and all of our allies, we were the only country that was not a United Nations country. So the only way we ended the war was September 7th, 1945. We signed the United Nations Treaty, which took effect 90 days later on December 7th, 1945, which coincidentally Pearl Harbor was December 7th. 1941. So we ended the war technically on the same day that it started, but we signed the United Nations Treaty. We gave them Manhattan Island. How do we know that? Well, Rudy Giovanni, when he was mayor of New York City, the press came to him and said, can't we do something about all these guys with all these parking tickets down there on Manhattan Island? And he said, I don't have any control over Manhattan Island. I'm just the mayor of New York. Well, isn't Manhattan right smack dab in the middle of New York City?
Wendigo.
Yeah, because it's the United Nations owned it.
Blico Blaine.
We gave it to them in the 1945 treaty, United Nations Treaty. We gave them 50 miles along the Mexican border as well. Did you know that? 50 miles wide. Those farmers down there that are right up against the border think they own their own land. They're sitting on United Nations property. What about Alaska and Hawaii that became states after December 7th, 1945? If you look in our laws, it says we have 47 states and Canada in our laws. We don't have Alaska and Hawaii. They're under the United Nations. You know what else we gave them? Part of our national parks, we gave them
Wendigo.
All of our police forces except our county sheriff's departments. Every city police force in the United States is United Nations. I built the City of Bend Police Department building, and on the blueprints there were 2 locker rooms. Each locker room had 115 lockers in them, and a bench down the middle, and all these lockers in both rooms
Wendigo.
were identical, except this one had a bolt door, but they were identical. Same walkers. Forgive my artwork. I'm not much of an artist. But when I built the City of Bend Police Department building, I had to build 2 locker rooms.
Wendigo.
And I said, how come? Well, because this one's filled with the duty uniforms and this one's filled with their United Nations uniforms.
All right, now that you're caught up on the basics, come with me on a journey and check out episode 1 of this series, News World Order. Your mind will be blown. All the dots will be connected. This will answer all your questions. And if you're watching this just because you want to know what the crazy conspiracists are thinking, this is the perfect video for you. Send this to everybody. Enjoy it. Pay attention.
Has the most minimal of symptoms, get tested.
Today is the first full day of the New World Order. Outdoor gatherings are limited to 2 people. Exercise is allowed, but no further than a 10-kilometre radius from your home. Browsing in shops is not permitted. Only 1 person per household may leave to do essential shopping. And from tomorrow, funerals are limited to 10 people.
And the length of this lockdown is up to each and every one of us.
Steve Hart.
The Secret Covenant. An illusion will be created so vast, so large that it escapes their perception. Those who see it will be thought of as insane. We will always stand above the relative field of their experience, for we know the secrets of the Absolute. We will work together always, and we will remain bound by blood and secrecy. Death will come to he who speaks. We will keep their lifespans short and their minds weak while pretending to do the opposite. We will use our knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways so they will never see what is happening. We will use soft metals, aging accelerators and sedatives in food and water, also in the air. They will be blanketed by poisons everywhere they turn. The soft metals will cause them to lose their minds. We will promise to find a cure from our many fronts, yet we will feed them more poison. The poisons will be absorbed through their skin and mouths. They will destroy their minds and reproductive systems. For all this, their children will be born dead, and we will conceal this information. They will see our products being used in films, and will grow accustomed to them, and will never know their true effect. When they give birth, we will inject poisons into the blood of their children and convince them that it's for their health. We will start early on, when their minds are young. We will target their children with what children love most, sweet things. When their teeth decay, we will fill them with metals that will kill their minds and steal their future. When their ability to learn has been affected, we will create medicines that will make them sicker and cause other diseases for which we will create yet more medicine. We will render them docile and weak, so they succumb to us and our power. They will grow depressed, slow and obese. And when they come to us for help, we will give them more poison. We will focus their attention towards money and material goods, so that they may never connect with their inner self. We will distract them with fornication, external pleasures, and games, so that they may never be one with the oneness of all. Their minds will belong to us, and they will do as we say. If they refuse, we shall find ways to implement mind-altering technology into their lives. We will use fear as our weapon. We will establish their governments and establish opposites within. We will own both sides. We will always hide our objective, but carry out our plan. They will perform the labor for us, and we shall prosper from their toil. Our families will never mix with theirs. Our blood must be pure, always, for it is the way. We will keep them separated from the oneness by dogma and religion. We will control all aspects of their lives. We will make them kill each other when it suits us, and tell them what to think and how. We will guide them kindly and gently, letting them think they are guiding themselves. We will incite animosity between them through our factions. When a light shall shine among them, we shall extinguish it by ridicule or death, whichever suits us best. We will make them rip each other's hearts out and kill their own children. We will accomplish this by using hate as our ally, anger as our friend. Hate will bind them totally, and never shall they see that from their conflicts we emerge as their rulers. They will be busy killing each other. They will bathe in their own blood and kill their neighbors for as long as we see fit. We will benefit greatly from this, for they will not see us, for they cannot see us. We will continue to prosper from their wars and their deaths. We shall repeat this over and over until our ultimate goal is accomplished. We will continue to make them live in fear and anger through images and sounds. We will use all the tools we have to accomplish this. The tools will be provided by their labor. We will make them hate themselves and their neighbors. This they must never know. We will always hide the divine truth from them, that we are all one. They must never know that color is an illusion. They must always think that they are not equal. Drop by drop, we will advance our goal. We will take over their land, resources, and wealth to exercise total control over them. We will trick them into accepting laws that will steal the little freedom that they have. We will establish a money system that will imprison them forever, keeping them and their children in debt. When they shall band together, we shall accuse them of crimes and present a different story to the world. For we will own all the media. We will use our media to control the flow of information and their sentiment in our favor. When they shall rise up against us, we will crush them like insects, for they are less than that. They will be helpless to do anything, for they will have no weapons. They must never learn this truth, for they will turn against us. For their work, they will be rewarded with earthly things and great titles. But never will they become immortal and join us. Never will they receive the light and travel the stars. They will never reach the higher realms, for the killing of their own kind will prevent passage to the realm of enlightenment. This they will never know. The truth will be hidden in their face. It will be so close that they will not be able to focus on it until it's too late. Oh yes, so grand will the illusion of freedom be that they will never know that they are our slaves. When all is in place, the reality that we have created from them will own them. This reality will be their prison. They will live in self-delusion. When our goal is accomplished, a new era of domination will begin. Their minds will be bound by their beliefs, the beliefs we have established from time immemorial. But if ever they find out that they are equal, we shall perish. This they must never know. If they ever find out that together they can conquer us, they will take action. They must never, ever find out what we have done, for if they do, we shall have no place to run, for it will be easy to see who we are once the veil has fallen. Our actions will have revealed who we are, and they will hunt us down, and no person shall give us shelter.
Hitler has often protested that his plans for conquest do not extend across the Atlantic Ocean, but his submarines and radars prove otherwise. And so does the entire design of his new world order. For example, I have in my possession a secret map made in Germany by Hitler's government, by the planners of the New World Order.
There's a need for a new world order. The new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't that a crisis.
To build a new world order.
A new world order can emerge. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders. It is a big idea, a new world order. It's the very real prospect of a new world order. As old threats recede, new threats emerge. The quest for the new world order.
And this is the best chance to establish the new world order. And that's why the stakes are so high.
We needed a new world order.
Now, much has been said by the Secretary of State and others about the new world order, on what kind of new world order we really create. Can it really be said that this is a true new world order when it lacks a true United Nations collective security effort at a new world order?
We kept talking about a new world order. And
waxing philosophically about the new world order and everything.
A new world order.
I think a new world order is emerging. It is a new world order.
What do you think America's place in the new world order should be?
I think the global policeman should be the United Nations.
You really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order.
See, I went to the big guys for the money. I was ready to prostitute myself. And
the affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
An incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order.
We've got to accept that this is the new world order.
And you pick the people to run those agencies and the deputies that are pledging allegiance to the new world order.
The organization is the institution granted exclusive power to guide and protect the health and wellness of humanity. The WHO is sustained by private donations, the bulk of which are made by pharmaceutical and biotech corporations who have a vested financial interest in the organization's support. In 2017, The Associated Press reported that the WHO routinely spends about $200 million a year on travel expenses, more than what it spends to fight some of the biggest problems in public health, including AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria combined. The WHO's repeated issuing of inaccurate and bad advice is not merely the result of incompetence, but rather the direct result of the Communist Party of China deliberately buying out WHO's leadership.
On the nomination of the Executive Board, appoints Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus as Director General of the World Health Organization.
Tedros Ghebreyesus is the World Health Organization's first Director General that isn't a medical doctor.
No Tedros for WHO! No Tedros for WHO!
The appointment to the organization's highest position was controversial, given that in his previous role as Ethiopia's health minister, Tedros was accused of covering up 3 major health epidemics.
Tedros is no stranger to controversy. As a former Minister of Health in Ethiopia, he has been accused of an alleged cover-up of 3 possible cholera epidemics.
Prior to his appointment, Tedros was a high-ranking member of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, a brutal and corrupt political group responsible for crimes against humanity, including bombings, kidnappings, tortures, and killings. How does a man with such a controversial past score the top position at the world's most influential health organization?
I have known Bill and Melinda for many, many years now.
While serving as Ethiopia's health minister, Tedros became intimately intertwined with both the Gates Foundation and the Clinton Foundation.
The health minister of Ethiopia, one of the ablest public servants I ever worked with.
With the backing of the 2 most powerful foundations on earth and the full support of the Communist Party of China, Tedros was a shoo-in.
We will have many body bags in front of us if we don't behave.
A very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Build back better.
Build back better.
To build back a better world.
Building back better.
To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
Build back better.
My plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
It's about building this country back better.
Build back better. Building back better.
Build back better.
Some would say to build back better.
What is the Great Reset? Let's walk through monetary policy. What's happening right now? What have we done over the last 8 months? Oh, we've increased our national debt by 50%. What happens if Joe Biden becomes the president? Oh, we're going to increase it more. We're going to increase it more anyways. Is this sustainable? I think global debt increased by 40% during the pandemic. But where did that money go? Oh, well, if you haven't looked, we're at all-time highs right now in the stock market. But what's been moving more than anything? Oh, big tech. Oh, wait, you mean to tell me that Apple and Google and Amazon and Facebook are up 50% from their previous all-time highs? That they're releasing record numbers during the coronavirus pandemic? And that's what everyone's buying from? And that's where all the money's going? While 40% of small businesses are going to close permanently? As we do new lockdowns in New York and California and Kentucky and any state with a Democratic governor? As more businesses close and the money continues to pour into Amazon and the companies we just mentioned. So what's happening here? What's happening? It's almost like it worked out pretty damn well for big tech, for other multinational corporations that have literally billions of dollars in their cash reserves. The business is only picked up. But it's unsafe to eat in a small business. But not for Amazon to deliver to you. So I'll tell you what the Great Reset is. The Great Reset is the absolute elimination of the middle class, of traditional enterprise, entrepreneurial business activity. You know, they're making it damn near impossible.
Sounds like a conspiracy theory. Bruh, the entire world is a conspiracy. The entire world we live in has been a product of 60 years of orienting the world to f*** you.
Okay? Like, I can't with
A
these
part
people.
of that plan, of course, is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example. Now, here are the aims for the United States. 1, greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. 2, higher and then much higher taxes. 3, an increasingly unbalanced budget despite the higher taxes. 4, wild inflation of our currency. 5, government controls of prices, wages, and materials, supposedly to combat inflation. 6, greatly increased socialistic controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied, naturally and automatically, by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and in both the cost and reach of our domestic government. 7, far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines eventually mean no more within the nation than our county lines do now within the states. 8, the steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. 9, a constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessity of peace. Peace always on communist terms, of course. And 10, the consequent willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government which amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world.
So, I just finished this fascinating book. By the year 2030, there'll be computers that can carry out the same amount of functions as an actual human brain. So, theoretically, you could download your thoughts and memories into this computer and live forever as a machine.
And I just realized I can sleep with my eyes open.
It is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They're broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal, and it's been going on for too long. To add to that problem, you have moral hazard, a very significant moral hazard from the political sphere. And most of the problem starts in politics and central banks, which are part of the same political system. We have counterfeiting, sometimes called quantitative easing, but counterfeiting by any other name. The artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time. Central banks repress the amount of interest that rates are, so we don't have the real cost of money. And yet we blame the real retail banks for manipulating LIBOR. The sheer effrontery of this is quite astonishing. It's central banks that manipulate interest rates, Commissioner. And plus, underneath all this, we talk loosely, in a rather cavalier fashion, do we not, about deposit guarantees. So when banks go broke through their own incompetence and chicanery, the taxpayer picks up the tab. It's theft from the taxpayer. And until we start sending bankers, and I include central bankers and politicians, to prison for this outrage, it will continue.
The population of this world was only 3 billion. The intention was to reduce it to 1 billion. Now the population of the world is 7 billion. There will be a need to kill many billions of people or to starve them to death or to prevent them from giving birth in order to reduce the population of this world. This is what is in store for most. For those who will suffer and die, there will be the peace of the great.
I believe we, and particularly you, your class, has an incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
In the post-war era, post-World War II era, we faced a slightly different set of challenges. As the global economy reemerged from the destructions of war, we knew that institutions and rules were needed to navigate through this new world order.
As we see more and more challenges to the liberal international order than any time since the end of World War II. But the greatest threat on this front springs from the distinct illiberal and external actors who equate their success with fracturing the liberal international order.
And within each one of us, with each one of you, there is the light of conscience. And look, each of us has to move beyond, reach beyond ourselves. We have to be a light to the world, not in the world. That's what you're all here for tonight. Look, I look out and I see a sea of global citizens, optimistic, determined. This is all about possibilities. And it's within our reach. We can change the world. We really can. You can. We can do this. You can do this. We can finish this job.
On April 23, 1992, the Wall Street Journal published an opinion editorial by then Delaware Senator Joe Biden entitled, "How I Learned to Love the New World Order." At the beginning of the article, he seems to challenge the military-industrial complex's strategy of America as Globocop by saying it would render the United States a hollow superpower. But as he questions what he calls the grand strategy, Biden calls for the Wall Street Journal to court an honest debate over America's proper role in the New World Order. Not whether or not the U.S. should participate in such an order, but strictly what our role will be in it, as if we have no choice but to submit to their global system. Biden criticizes people who claim America has, quote, been suckered into fighting other people's battles and defending other people's interests, again insisting that the U.S. must be involved in settling any and all affairs around the world, characterizing those philosophies that disagree as, quote, 1930s style isolationism. Going one step further, Biden says he expects, quote, to see the strong hand of American leadership in world affairs in order to find global solutions to overpopulation, migration, and environmental degradation. Beginning to sound familiar? Biden claims the USA's strategy as Globocop has to be, quote, a shade more clever than Mao's axiom that power comes from the barrel of a gun. Power also emanates from a solid bank balance, the ability to dominate and penetrate markets, and economic leverage. So in other words, Biden will use economic warfare to force nations to submit to the US-led and supported New World Order. Sounds like the Great Reset being used to build back a supposedly better global government on the ruins of sovereign nations that resisted the New Order. Lastly, Biden claims he wants to regularize multilateral response from the United Nations global government of collectivism, stating, quote, why not breathe life into the UN Charter? He even calls on reallocating Pentagon funds to support Russia and to finance UN soldiers in their missions around the world. calling them by their deceptive peacekeeper title, as they conversely cause turmoil and subjugate nations to global government under their UN banner. Biden distorts all of this to the Wall Street Journal reader as a way to assure the USA's superpower status, although he asserts the United States must, quote, get lean militarily, while putting, quote, new muscle into institutions of collective security, meaning funding the United Nations military. Now that Joe Biden has been sworn in as President of the United States, despite voter fraud that altered the outcome of the 2020 election in his favor, will he now oversee the completion of building what he refers to as a new world order that has been decades in the making?
Conspiracy can deal with exposure. Once the truth is out and the people understand, then they have problems. And I'm saying that the power of any government is in people. If you understand that symbols and emblems and things that we see every day are like the letters of an alphabet, if you put them together, they tell a story. If you understand, wake up and understand that we are not in a benevolent government, that Plato said the price good people pay for non-involvement in public affairs is to be ruled by evil men.
Now you're going to come on a walk with us through the financial aspect of this entire thing. You're going to meet the bad people behind the scenes and you're going to know who's actually pulling the strings. These are the fall men, the billionaires, not the trillionaires, but the pawns, who don't mind being pawns because they're paid. This also includes clip from an Illumicorp training video. What is Illumicorp? You'll see in the video. This is explained like no other video will explain it to you. You'll love this. So we're going to start with a clip from 2009 that holds oh so true to today. Check this out.
As soon as you and I finish, I'm leaving the country again. Why? Because in a very short time, not today, not tomorrow, but very soon, we'll be facing compulsory vaccination under the mistaken term of voluntary vaccination.
Now, Jesse Ventura exposes the secret society of elite power brokers that pulls the strings and calls the shots.
Talking about the control of absolutely everything on the planet.
It's not a fantasy. They mate in plain sight.
This is the scene of the crime.
Only no one knows what goes on behind closed doors.
They say we're not secret, we're private.
I need you to move off the property.
We're being kept well back from the building.
Until now. They control the money.
When you control the purse strings, you control the world.
They control the food.
They're poisoning our people.
They even decide who will live and who will die.
They want you dead, Governor.
Why? And their most lethal plot may be underway right now.
The idea is to target the human immune system.
They're out to kill me. Jesse Ventura confronts the most powerful and ruthless conspiracy yet. The group that runs the world. The ones who want you dead. The Bilderbergs and the global death plot.
What if I told you that there was a company so powerful on the planet today that it affects almost every single aspect of our lives? A company that is so rich that they hold more assets than the GDP of every single country in the world except for 2. A company that is the single largest investor in the destruction of our planet's forests and the largest money contributor to the fossil fuels industry. And what if I also told you that it's very likely you are responsible for the funding of this company and allowing it to do what it does? And even if you tried your absolute hardest, it would almost be impossible for you to stop giving them money. The scary fact is that this company does exist, and you have most likely never heard its name before.
So if you haven't had your mind blown in a while, I am about to blow it up.
How does it work? Let's take as an example a company like PepsiCo, which is the parent company of many of the most popular soft drinks and snacks in the world. There appear to be many different competing brands, but they all come from the factories of a small number of corporations that together have a monopoly on the industry. Within the packaged food industry, there are a number of other major companies, such as Unilever, the Coca-Cola Company, Mondelez, and Nestlé. On this image, you see that virtually every well-known brand in the packaged food industry belongs to one of these corporations. You can easily get this kind of information. You can verify it on the websites of the relevant brands or on Wikipedia. Companies of this size are usually publicly traded and have a board where the largest shareholders call the shots. On websites like Yahoo Finance, we can find detailed company information, including who the largest shareholders of these companies are. Let's take PepsiCo again as an example. We see that 73.14% of the shares are held by no less than 3,379 institutional investors. These include investment companies, mutual funds, insurance companies, banks, and in some cases, governments. Let's look at who the largest institutional investors of PepsiCo are. As you can see, just 10 out of the 3,379 investors account for almost 1/3 of all shares. The combined share capital of these top 10 has a value of approximately $60 billion. But of those 10 investors, 3 own more shares than the remaining 7. Let's remember their names and let's see who owns the most shares at the Coca-Cola Company, Pepsi's big competitor. We see that just like with PepsiCo, the majority of the shares are held by institutional investors. Let's look at the top 10 and start with the last one of them. 4 out of these 6 institutional investors we also saw at the last 6 of PepsiCo. These are Norton Trust, JP Morgan Chase, Geody Capital Management, and Wellington Management. Now, let's look at the 4 largest shareholders. 3 of these we also saw in the top 4 at PepsiCo. They are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And there's another one, Berkshire Hathaway. These are the 4 largest investment companies on the planet. PepsiCo and Coca-Cola are anything but competitors. But also the other big companies that own many brands, such as Unilever, Mondelez, and Nestlé, are owned by the same small group of institutional investors. And you don't only find these names in the packaged food industry. For example, let's look up on Wikipedia what the largest companies are within the technology industry. Facebook owns WhatsApp and Instagram. Together with Twitter, they form the most popular social media platforms in the world. Alphabet is the parent company of all Google businesses, including YouTube and Gmail, but they are also the biggest sponsors and developers of Android, one of the 2 operating systems on which almost all smartphones and tablets in the world run. The other operating system is Apple's iOS. Finally, if we add Microsoft to the other 3, we see that 4 companies produce the software that almost all computers, tablets and smartphones in the world depend on.
Actual life hack. If you'd like to know how much an app or your phone can learn about you just from giving it access to your camera, this is what it looks like. This is my camera, not even recording. This is in real time, and it's identifying everything in the image. If this is news to you, please throw me a like or a follow. It'd be greatly appreciated. I'll try to bring more content like this.
Let's see who owns the most shares of these powerful companies. If we look at Facebook, we see that more than 80% of the shares are owned by institutional investors. These are the same names we saw in the food industry. Again, the same investors at the top. Then Twitter, which with Facebook and Instagram makes up the top 3. Amazingly, we see that the company is also owned by the same investors. We see them at Apple, but also with their big competitor Microsoft. when we look at all the other companies that dominate the technology industry and build our computers, TVs, smartphones and household appliances, we see the same big investors who own a majority of the shares. We see this within all industries around the world. And just to show you that I'm not exaggerating, I'll give you another example. Let's say we want to plan a vacation. On our computer or smartphone, we look for a cheap flight to the sun through websites like Skyscanner and Expedia, both of which belong to the same group of institutional investors. We fly with one of the many airlines, of which the majority of the shares are often owned by the same investors or by governments, like Air France-KLM. The aircraft we fly is in most cases a Boeing or an Airbus. Again, we see the same names. We look for a hotel or an apartment through Booking.com or Airbnb.com. Once we arrive at our destination, we go out for dinner, then we write a review on TripAdvisor. The same investors are at the basis of every aspect of our journey, and their power goes even much further, because even the kerosene that fuels the plane comes from one of their many oil companies and refineries. Just like the steel that the plane is made of comes from one of their many mining companies. This small club of investment companies, banks and mutual funds are also the largest shareholders in the primary industries, where raw materials come from. If we look on Wikipedia for the largest mining companies in the world, we see that their shareholders are the same institutional investors we see everywhere else. The same goes for the largest agricultural companies in the world, that our entire food industry depends on. For example, they own Bayer, the parent company of Monsanto, the world's largest seed producer, which produces 90% of all the cotton seed on Earth, as well as the majority of all other seeds.
Continuing the series about the truth about our food supply that Bayer, aka Monsanto, doesn't want us to know about. So this is probably one of the most disturbing papers I've read to date. They exposed one female mouse to glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, and studied its children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and they found that F-Zero mom lived a normal life, but each subsequent generation had a dramatic increase of disease. And this is after F-Zero mom was only exposed during pregnancy. No other mouse had exposure to glyphosate. They found an explosion of ovary disease, kidney disease, birth abnormalities, tripling of cancer rates, and a 4 times increase of obesity and multiple chronic diseases. Translate this to our generation, and if you're a millennial, our moms would have been the pregnant women in the 90s, and each subsequent generation would have more disease until the children born in 2050. Think about the implications. Please go read this paper and share this to anyone you care about. I have more to say about this, but I'm running out of time, so follow if you want to learn more.
But these institutional investors are also the shareholders of the largest textile manufacturing companies in the world. And even the numerous popular clothing brands that turn the cotton into the clothes we wear are owned by the same group of investors. Whether we have the world's largest solar panel producers or the largest oil refineries, the shares are managed by the same companies. They own the tobacco companies, who produce all the popular tobacco brands in the world. But they also own all the major companies in the pharmaceutical industry and the scientific institutes that produce the drugs. They own the companies that produce our metals and raw materials, and the entire automobile, aircraft and arms industry where those metals and raw materials are processed. They own the companies that build our electronics. They own the big department stores and online marketplaces. And even the payment methods that we use to pay for their projects. Because I want to keep my story as short as possible, I've decided to only show the tip of the iceberg. If you decide to investigate on your own, using the sources that you've just seen, and you will discover that even many of the most well-known insurance companies, banks, construction companies, telephone companies, restaurant chains.
Hey, you! Did you know that McDonald's French fries had this ingredient in them? I knew they were bad, but I did not know that they were this bad.
Very common defect of russet Burbank potatoes called net necrosis. And you've seen potatoes with a little brown line sometimes, or spots that come through it. Well, McDonald's won't buy them if your potatoes have that. And the only way to eliminate that is to eliminate an aphid. And the only way to do that is with a pesticide called Monitor that is so toxic that the farmers who grow these potatoes in Idaho won't venture outside into their fields for 5 days after they spray. And then when they harvest their potatoes, they have to put them in these atmosphere-controlled sheds the size of a football stadium because they're not edible for 6 weeks. They have to off-gas all the chemicals in them.
And cosmetic brands are owned by the same institutional investors we just saw. These institutional investors are, as I told you earlier, mainly investment companies, banks and insurance companies. They are in turn also owned by shareholders. Now, what is the most amazing thing? All of these institutional investors own each other's shares, and together they form an immense network that we can compare to a pyramid. The smaller institutional investors are owned by larger investors, who in turn belong to even larger investors. The visible top of this pyramid consists of only 2 companies, and we have seen their names many times by now.
All people are aware of class. To them, society is made up of the rich, the middle, and the poor.
The one thing that all 3 classes don't understand is that the pyramid continues upward. There is a detached hidden capstone made up of an elite board of directors who own and manage Allumacorp. The 3 classes below, in essence, become the assets and resources of Allumacorp. Allumacorp is divided into various administrative branches, but each branch has the same 5 levels in their hierarchy. You will begin at the bottom, in the initiate category. As such, your role will be to make sure that your orders are carried out through the sub-corporations and institutions controlled by Allumacorp.
You will be placed in plain sight, at the head of a company or institution in the public sector, to carry out the plans delivered from above. Remember, your role is very important. You will be the face of Allumacorp to the outside world. You are our connection to the masses below. Never speak publicly about your orders or your masters.
There are Vanguard and BlackRock. The power of these 2 companies is something we can barely imagine. Not only are they the largest institutional investors of every major company on Earth, they also own the other institutional investors of those companies, giving them a complete monopoly. According to a report by Bloomberg, one of the most respected institutions in the world in the field of financial data and analytics, experts expect that by 2028, both companies will collectively manage about $20 trillion in investments, and in the process will own almost everything on Earth. The same Bloomberg called BlackRock the 4th arm of government, because it is the only non-government entity that has a close relationship with the federal banks, also called the central banks. BlackRock not only lends money to the federal banks, but is also their principal advisor and the developer of the computer system that the federal banks use. Dozens of BlackRock employees had senior positions in the White House during the Bush and the Obama administrations, and currently under Joe Biden. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink is a welcome guest with many heads of state and politicians, and understandably so. He's the face of the company that pulls the strings. Yet Larry Fink does not pull the strings himself. In fact, BlackRock itself is owned by shareholders. And if we look at who those shareholders are, we come to a strange conclusion. We see that BlackRock's largest shareholder is Vanguard, and this is where it gets dark. Vanguard itself has a unique structure that makes it impossible to see who its shareholders or clients are. The elite who own Vanguard don't want anyone to know that they are the owners of the most powerful company on Earth. But of course, this is no secret to those who are willing to look into it. Reports by Oxfam and Bloomberg show that 1% of the world's population collectively owns more money than the other 99%. Indeed, Oxfam claims that as much as 82% of all the money earned in 2017 went to this 1% of people. Naturally, those who own the most powerful company on Earth would also be the richest among this 1%. In other words, they are part of the 0.001%.
This is potentially Lumacorp's most effective instrument for global control. Through international banking, we manipulate the fate of all countries. We've introduced many institutions, such as the IMF and WTO, that work in our favor to impoverish disobedient nations. Always remember, debt is a powerful weapon against countries that don't share Lumacorp's vision.
Perhaps our greatest achievement in banking is the Federal Reserve System. It is a collection of international banks owned by Lumacorp members and financiers. It was created to form a centralized banking system through the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, an act that was indeed penned by some of our most esteemed members. Many of you might still assume that the government itself prints and issues the currency. That is not the case. When America needs money, they go to our boys and ask for it. The money is printed, but it is only representative of a loan. Interest accrues on that dollar until it is paid back to the Fed. In fact, the federal taxes paid by the American population go almost entirely to paying off this debt. So you see, Lumacorp derives a healthy amount of its operation funding directly from the debt of the public. Needless to say, this is one of our most crucial sources of funding and one of our proudest achievements here at Lumacorp. Through mergers and acquisitions, we have slowly and silently bought up the majority of U.S. industry. Lumacorp and its members own most of the oil, transport, banking, media, food and communications industries in America and abroad. Through fewer and fewer conglomerates, we are able to effect with great precision the machinations of labor and government.
Ultimately, corporations will replace government as a centralized international body that can meet the needs of the public worldwide without the chaos created by national self-interest. When Lumacorp goes public, corporatism will be the foundation for world government. Conglomerates will merge into one cohesive corporation that is responsible only to Lumacorp and the needs of its global employment force.
Forbes, the most well-known business magazine in the world, claims that by March 2020 there were some 2,075 billionaires. Oxfam's report showed that 2/3 of all these billionaires obtained their fortune through inheritances and monopolies. So this means that Vanguard is in the hands of the richest families on Earth. If we study their history, we discover that these families have always belonged to the top of the pyramid, some even well before the Industrial Revolution began. Because their history is so interesting and extensive, I will explain some more about them in the follow-up video that I'm currently working.
Let's have a look at the visible top of the power pyramid. There we have the Rothschild family. In short, this family owns most of the world. They own each and every central bank. They own the Federal Reserve. They control the International Monetary Fund. They control the World Health Organization. They financed both parties of every war since the war against Napoleon. They financed the Bolshevik Revolution. They financed Hitler and the Nazis. They financed the production of IBM's punching machines for an efficient prosecution of the Jews by the Nazis. And they had equities in Exxon and IG Farben, the dealers of Zyklon B gas for the Nazi gas chambers. The estimated net worth of the Rothschild family is $500 billion. When you have that much money and power, You can poke the chest of the Crown Prince of Great Britain like he's your bitch. And when you oppose their power and try to stop them from taking over your banking system by setting up a central bank in your country that loans money to you at insane interest rates that you can never pay back, so that your country becomes the eternal slave to the Rothschild banking system, as happened to every country around the world, you are either ousted or killed. Your country will be invaded and blown to smithereens in the name of democracy, supported by the mainstream media that portrays you as a dictator. The same applies to those who refuse to accept the almighty US petrodollar. Oh, and there's much more, but we'll leave that for another time.
Okay guys, check this out. Go to pubchem.com. It's a government website. Gives a lot of information about all the different viruses and everything that the government tests and all that kind of jazz. When you get there, go right there where it says COVID-19. Click on that. Scroll down a little bit. It's the second name. I'm actually sorry. Click right there, that blue bar where it says compounds. That'll drop down a menu. All the way at the bottom where it says patents. Yep, patents for the COVID-19. Second name down. Look at that name, Rothschild. I think we all know who that is, right? He's got a patent on the system and method for testing for COVID. When was that patent created? Look there, 2015. 2015.
American public's ignorance towards the federal income tax is a testament to how dumbed down and oblivious the American population really is. First of all, the federal income tax is completely unconstitutional, as it is a direct, unapportioned tax. All direct taxes have to be apportioned to be legal based on the Constitution. Secondly, the required number of states in order to ratify the amendment to allow the income tax was never met, and this has even been cited in modern court cases. Third, at the present day, roughly 25% of the average worker's income is taken via this tax. And guess where that money goes? It goes to pay the interest on the currency being produced by the fraudulent Federal Reserve Bank, a system that does not have to exist at all. The money you make working almost 3 months out of the year goes almost literally into the pockets of the international bankers who own the private Federal Reserve.
But in order not to elaborate too far, I will just point out that many of these families belong to royal bloodlines, and they are the founders of our banking system.
Rockefeller to a female attorney I knew who called me up one day and said, one of the Rockefellers would like to meet you. I had made a video called Mad as Hell, and he'd seen the video and wanted to meet me and knew I was running for governor of Nevada. So sure, I'd love to meet him. And I met him and I liked him, and he was a very, very smart man. And we used to talk and share ideas and thoughts. And he's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told me what the event was going to be. But there was going to be an event. And out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, you know, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order.
That day, and when I saw Building 7 come down, to me,
it fell within 7 seconds approximately from top to bottom. This building was built in the mid-'80s and met all the codes at the time.
The fact that it looks like a perfect controlled demolition of an intact building.
John D. Rockefeller Jr. established the Rockefeller dynasty in population control back in 1913. With the foundation of the Bureau of Social Hygiene, and later began financing the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Anthropology, Human Hereditary, and Eugenics, which conducted eugenics experiments in Nazi Germany with Rockefeller money. After the end of World War II, eugenics had lost momentum in the U.S. due to the open Nazi support for the program, and was rebranded as things such as molecular biology with the help from people like Julian Huxley, who has extensive ties to the United Nations, and through sustainable development with the support of the Rockefellers and Rothschilds. Published at Bloomberg, which of course is owned by the same presidential candidate and head of the financial task force covered earlier in this report, recently published a report claiming that 11,000 top global scientists urgently declared that the Earth needs fewer people to avoid climate crisis. But when you actually look at the document, it's really only about 2,000 scientists who supposedly signed this. And I wouldn't doubt that. When you see how the Rockefeller family has taken over universities across the country and installed their own like-minded people, it's not too far-fetched to think that they could get a couple thousand scientists to sign this. Now, once you have a greater understanding of what the agenda actually is, as presented in this report, you begin to see how these global bodies, governments, foundations, and financial institutions plan to achieve this new sustainable financial system. You'll begin to see how this has spread everywhere, even in your own local communities, under the guise of sustainable development and saving the planet from climate change. You also begin to see how this global agenda is aimed at, again, concentrating more power into the hands of the oligarchs on the pretext of economic and social justice, saving the planet from yourselves. But for now, I will leave you with this quote from David Rockefeller. Some believe that we, the Rockefellers, are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I'm proud of it.
Around the same time that John D. Rockefeller seized U.S. media, he also hijacked U.S. medicine. When it was discovered that drugs could be produced from petroleum, America's top oil mogul ordered his army of propagandists to invert reality accordingly. Medicines used for thousands of years were suddenly classified as alternative, while the new, petroleum-based, highly addictive, and patentable drugs were declared the gold standard. After buying the German pharmaceutical company that manufactured chemicals of war for Adolf Hitler, Rockefeller leveraged his political influence by pressing Congress to declare natural healing modalities unscientific quackery. Rockefeller then took control of the American Medical Association and began offering massive grants to top medical schools under the mandate that only his approved curriculum be taught. Any mention of the healing powers of herbs, plants, and diet was erased from most medical textbooks. Doctors and professors who objected to Rockefeller's plan were crucified by the media, removed from the AMA, and stripped of their license to teach and practice medicine.
Talk glibly about science. What is science? People coming out of a university with a master's degree or a PhD, you take them into the field, and they literally don't believe anything unless it's a peer-reviewed paper. It's the only thing they accept. And you say to them, but let's observe, let's think, let's discuss. They don't do it. It's just, is it in a peer-reviewed paper or not? That's their view of science. I think it's pathetic. Gone into universities as bright young people. They come out of them brain dead, not even knowing what science means. They think it means peer-reviewed papers, etc. No, that's academia. And if a paper is peer-reviewed, it means everybody thought the same, therefore they approved it. An unintended consequence is that when new knowledge emerges, new scientific insights, they can never ever be peer-reviewed. So we're blocking all new advances in science that are big advances. If you look at the breakthroughs in science, almost always they don't come from the center of that profession. They come from the fringe. The finest candle makers in the world couldn't even think of electric lights. They don't come from within, they often come from outside the breaks. We're going to kill ourselves because of stupidity.
Those who dared to speak out were arrested and jailed. When evidence began to emerge that petroleum-based medicines were causing cancer, Mr. Rockefeller founded the American Cancer Society, through which he suppressed that information. John D. Rockefeller is duly credited as the founder of the pharmaceutical industry and the reason that medical error is currently the third leading cause of death in America. This is not an indictment against doctors. More than anyone, they are under the stranglehold of the single largest lobbying power in Washington. Every year, the pharmaceutical industry spends at least twice the amount as big oil to influence laws, policies, and public perception. Thanks to Mr. Rockefeller, the architect of American monopolies, no industry has more power over our lives than Big Pharma.
Hi everybody, so I'm just having a little freak out in my car because I just found out that my fucking diabetic supplies, like my insulin and my pump supplies, the things I need to live, are costing $2,000 a month. I'm 24. I only just got out of college before COVID hit and I am not making any good money. How am I supposed to pay $2,000 for something that I didn't do anything to get? America is fucking bullshit. Like, I can't afford to live. I have to pay for something I did not at all do anything to get. So I guess I'll just fucking die.
The United Nations and every industry in the world.
Until now, the world we've known has been a world divided, a world of barbed wire and concrete block, conflict, Cold War. Now we can see a new world coming into view, a world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. In the words of Winston Churchill, a world order in which the principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against the strong. A world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders. A world in which freedom and respect for human rights find a home among all nations. The Gulf War put this new world to its first test. And my fellow Americans, we passed that test. For the sake of our principles, for the sake of the Kuwaiti people, we stood our ground. Because the world would not look the other way. Ambassador El Saba, tonight, Kuwait is free. Where is it? We are very happy about that. Tonight, as our troops begin to come home, let us recognize that the hard work of freedom still calls us forward. We've learned the hard lessons of history. The victory over Iraq was not waged as a war to end all wars. Even the New World Order cannot guarantee an era of perpetual peace, but enduring peace must be our mission. Our success in the Gulf will shape not only the New World Order we seek, but our mission here at home. In the war just ended, there were clear-cut objectives, timetables, and above all, an overriding imperative to achieve results. We must bring that same sense of self-discipline, that same sense of urgency to the way we meet challenges here at home.
Threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My 03 budget calls for more than
$48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
$2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America.
Get ready to read all these words on this page without making a mistake. Look at the letter at the end and remember the sound it makes. Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready. Kid. Yes, kid. Sound it out. Get ready. Kid. Sound it out. Get ready. Kid. What word? Kid. Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready. Steel. What word? Steel. Yes, steel. Read these words the fast way. Get ready. Play. Yes, playing. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready. Kit. Yes, kit. Get ready. Steel. Yes, steel. Get ready. Play. Yes, playing. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Boys and girls, pick your reader up from under your seat. Open your book up to lesson 60 on page 153.
These families never lost their power, but because of an increasing world population, they were forced to hide behind investment companies such as Vanguard, whose largest shareholders are the private funds and non-profit organizations of these families. To make the bigger picture more clear, I need to briefly explain something about these non-profit organizations. These are the links that connect the business community with politics and the media, allowing major conflicts of interest. At first glance, however, this is not too noticeable. Non-profits, also called foundations, are organizations that rely on donations, and they do not have to publish from whom they receive those donations. They can invest this money in whatever they want, and do not have to pay tax on their profits as long as those profits are reinvested in other projects that they are involved in. Non-profits can move hundreds of billions of dollars from invisible investors. According to a report by the Australian government, this makes non-profit organizations ideal to finance terrorist groups and launder large sums of money. The foundations and funds of the families who are highest in the hierarchy of the 1% hide behind the scenes as much as possible. However, for cases that have a lot of publicity and attention, they use the foundations of philanthropist families that are lower in the ranking, but who are also extremely wealthy. In order to be concise, I will only highlight the 3 most important foundations in the world that connect all the industries in the world to each other. These are the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
In 1998, Dr. Zabin became the founding director of the Bill and Melinda Gates Institute for Population Control, with a mission to help developing countries create their own reproductive health policies and programs.
Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to 0. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Vaccines sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect, ranging from severe chills to fevers. So, are these vaccines safe?
Well, the FDA, not being pressured, will look hard at that. The FDA is the gold standard of regulators, and their current guidance on this, if they stick with that, is very, very appropriate. And you know, the side effects were not super severe. That is, it didn't cause permanent health problems for
the things there. Moderna did have to go with a fairly high dose. And so, to get the antibodies, some of the other vaccines are able to go with lower doses to get responses that are pretty high, including the J&J and the Pfizer. And so there's a lot of characteristics of these vaccines. It's great that we have multiple of them that are
Bill,
going out there. And yes, I think
you know the data better than I do.
government-
But the Bill, the data showed that everybody with a high dose had a side effect.
Yeah, but some of that is not dramatic, where it's just super painful. But yes, we need to make sure there's not severe side effects. The FDA.
I think an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths, either naturally caused or intentionally caused. A lot of things that are going very well, things like reducing childhood death and improving the nutrition. So travel to Africa, meet with scientists. We see a lot of things that are going very well, things like reducing childhood death and improving the nutrition. So
Gates has helped to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Well, today at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, he announced that his project called CEPI, or the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, has $460 million. He sat down with CBS News to talk about how that money will go to preparing for the next great epidemic.
The idea is to take a new way of building vaccines that could let us develop in less than a year a novel vaccine. They're called DNA RNA vaccines, and so we'll fund a few projects to build specific vaccines, but not only will we get that, we'll prove out that these platforms can work, we'll understand the regulatory issues, and it gives us a chance of being able to respond in time when the next epidemic hits.
Well, one, we should definitely open up the schools, and we need to stop listening to Dr. Fauci, who is funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. And all of your listeners know this, I know this, you know this, we all know this, but Jeffrey Epstein's not a good man, and Bill Gates spent a lot of time with Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't think we should be listening to a pedophile for how to treat our kids. Period.
From the New York Times sheds light on the connection between Microsoft founder Bill Gates and the late Jeffrey Epstein. After Gates' name came up in connection with Epstein and MIT Media Lab, Gates gave a statement to the Wall Street Journal where he insisted he did not have any business relationship or friendship with Epstein. But new reporting from the New York Times outlines numerous meetings between Gates and Epstein and a conversation with Bill and Melinda Gates' foundation, a connection between their foundation and J.P. Morgan to set up a charitable fund that would financially benefit Epstein. Gates says, no relationship, nada, nothing. You report these two men met at least 6 times. What does Gates say about that?
Well, I believe that there were more, and he and his spokespeople would not say how many in total they actually met. But this included visits to the mansion, seeing each other in Seattle, flying on Epstein's plane, when we all know Bill Gates has his own $40 million plane.
That Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything.
And tonight he's charged with having and trading a massive amount of child pornography. KIRO 7's Gary Horker is live near the Gates compound in Medina. And Gary, this man worked as an engineer for the family.
That's what SPD and intelligence found out, Steve. They found out that the man actually worked for the Bill and Melinda Gates mansion on the grounds of their sprawling 66,000 square foot estate, and that's where they found him and questioned him last March. The estate is behind us right on the lakefront here, but this is a few blocks away, and it's as close as their security will allow us to get. But according to King County prosecutors, 51-year-old Rick Allen Jones was questioned by detectives about images of child porn and even child rape that were sent from Jones's home computer. Now, none of this alleged crime actually happened at the Gates mansion, but it was here that Rick Allen Jones admitted to detectives he collected child porn for about 10 years, sending images through his Gmail account. Now, while Jones was talking to detectives at the Gates estate, 3 more SPD detectives had a search warrant to search Jones's Ballard apartment. There, they say they found more than 6,000 images of graphic child porn and rape, 133 of which were children identified by police. We tried Jones's apartment for comment. We got no response. We also reached out to Bill and Melinda Gates' foundation, and we did not hear back. So, in fact, we do not know if he's been fired by the Gates' family. Another mystery into this is why Jones was never jailed or charged by these allegations up until now. The investigation started here at the Gates Foundation, the Gates Mansion, in March, and the criminal complaint, which I have right here, says he has to show up in court and face a judge in the coming days. So we're going to keep track of this. We're digging into the charges. We'll keep you posted on the latest. Live from the lakefront in Medina tonight, I'm Gary Horker, KIRO 7 Eyewitness News.
It takes years to build a new vaccine. But the scientific idea of these new platforms could radically change that, so that a lot of the steps are sitting there ready. The factory piece, understanding the regulatory piece, and you just have to plug in some information, do some quick safety profiles, and then you can get into manufacturing quite rapidly. Well, we need vaccines for a lot of things, not just epidemics. We need a HIV vaccine, a tuberculosis vaccine, a malaria vaccine. All of those things are in the works, and over the next decade, I think most of those we'll get solutions for.
The world's wealthiest men. The target was Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates arriving for a meeting with community leaders. Watch what happens when a team of hitmen meet him first with a pie in the face.
Have been injured by Big Pharma. I don't care how big this corporate machine looks. As a parent, I can tell you, these people will never stop fighting for their kids.
Bill Gates is either the most misunderstood man alive or one of the most convincing con men to ever live. Is he a benevolent hero or a malevolent opportunist?
Bill Gates.
Personally, I would love to believe that one of the richest men in the world is giving away his fortune for the betterment of humanity. I want to believe that endearing smile. I want to believe that his heart is as soft and warm as his sweaters. At the very least, I want to believe that he's unaware of the damage he's done.
When do you think life will fully return to what we thought of as normal back in January? No masks, no social distancing, no other protective measures necessary.
Certainly by the summer, we'll be way closer to normal than we are now. But even through early 2022, unless we help other countries get rid of this disease and we get high vaccination rates in our country, the risk of reintroduction will be there. And of course, the global economy will be slowed down, which hurts America economically in a pretty dramatic way. So we'll have, starting in the summer, about 9 months where a few things like big public gatherings will still be restricted. But, we can see now.
The Open Society Foundations of the controversial multi-billionaire George Soros.
Did you know that in 2015, the Rothschilds patented a test for C19? 2015, And here we are, 2021, in July, old Soros and Gates buying out a C19 testing company right after the FDA said that the PCR tests were totally useless. I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all.
Of all the financial titans and philanthropists of the 20th century, none are more complex or mysterious than George Soros. Like Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and the Rockefellers, he amassed billions through ruthless business decisions, only to turn around and give away most of his fortune to advance his own personal philosophy. He can move world financial markets simply by voicing an opinion, or destabilize a government by buying and selling its currency. He also pledged more aid last year to help people in Russia than the U.S. government did. But now George Soros is worried. He thinks the global economy is coming apart at the seams, and that the world needs to be protected from people like George Soros.
A new report finding George Soros, the liberal activist billionaire, gave hundreds of millions of dollars to groups behind yesterday's Day Without a Woman protest. And they're the same groups who marched against President Trump the day after his inauguration.
George Soros, the billionaire financier, says he understands anti-bank protests that started in New York and have spread across the United States.
We'll move on. Its website calls for people to rally against the president-elect. It apparently has ties to billionaire investor and Clinton supporter George Soros, too. That's, in fact, according to emails, if you look back to 2008, released by WikiLeaks from Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta, to George Soros. In fact, they gave tips on how to steer American voters.
So if you still think these Black Bloc and Antifa protests are natural, organic eruptions of, outrage, think again. It's just not true. They're paid.
And the Clinton Foundation.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. The goal was to understand the effects of radiation exposure on the human body. While most of the tests were ethical by any standards, some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted. They failed both the test of our national values and the test of humanity. Informed consent means your doctor tells you the risk of the treatment you are about to undergo. In too many cases, informed consent was withheld. Americans were kept in the dark about the effects of what was being done to them. The deception extended beyond the test subjects themselves to encompass their families and the American people as a whole. For these experiments were kept secret, and they were shrouded not for a compelling reason of national security, but for the simple fear of embarrassment, and that was wrong. So today, on behalf of another generation of American leaders and another generation of American citizens, the United States of America offers a sincere apology to those of our citizens who were subjected to these experiments, to their families, and to their communities.
A very brief introduction to give you an idea of the size of these types of foundations. According to the official website of the World Economic Forum, the Gates Foundation is the largest funder of the World Health Organization, after President Donald Trump halted the funding of the WHO by the US in 2020. This makes the Gates Foundation one of the most influential organizations in the world in the area of everything that relates to our health. The Gates Foundation has a close partnership with the 16 largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, including Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, BioNTech, and Bayer, and we have just seen who owned the most shares of these companies. Bill Gates was anything but a poor computer nerd who made it to one of the richest people in the world. But he came from a philanthropic family that, just like himself, worked for the absolute elite. Bill is the founder of Microsoft, which is owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, and until recently, Berkshire Hathaway. But at the same time, the Gates Foundation is the largest shareholder after BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street in Berkshire Hathaway, where he was even on the board for a while. We would spend hours if we considered everything the Gates Foundation, the Open Society Foundations of George Soros, and the Clinton Foundation are involved in. But because they connect us with the next topic and with the current events, this brief introduction was important. I think the next topic should start with a question. A random person like myself, with very little experience in video editing, using an old laptop, can in 20 minutes objectively portray that only 2 companies have a total monopoly over all the industries in the world. So the natural question is, why don't you hear about all of this in the media?
What? That's a good question.
Every day we have the choice between countless reports, documentaries, and television programs, and yet not one of them talks about this. Is it something not interesting enough? Or might there perhaps be other interests at play? The answer we get again from Wikipedia. About 90% of the international media is owned by 9 media conglomerates. The companies owned by these media conglomerates are too many to mention, so I'm just going to show you the most important brands that we all know. Viacom CBS is the parent company of, among others, all CBS channels, Paramount, where the most famous movies and series in the world come from, MTV, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, the popular British Channel 5, and the popular Australian 10. Guess who the largest shareholders of Viacom CBS are? Before we look at the other major conglomerates, let's not forget to mention our extremely powerful streaming monopolists, Netflix and Amazon Prime, both of which belong to the same shareholders. Then AT&T, which is the parent company of Warner Brothers, HBO, Discovery Channel, CNN.
Keeping them honest tonight, potentially hundreds of military employees and contractors who may have bought child pornography online but haven't been prosecuted or even in some cases investigated. That's right, you heard me, child pornography. As many as 1,700 names, according to a U.S. Senator, on a list of 5,200 from an internet sting operation overlooked the first time around 4 years ago. Only now are they supposedly getting a second look, and only after pressure from investigative reporters.
This was unearthed by a researcher at Wellesley College. What she found is that in the 1940s, doctors at the U.S. Public Health Service, a part of the U.S. government, were interested in studying syphilis and penicillin. They had penicillin. They weren't quite sure how well it worked. It was in the early days of penicillin. So they went to Guatemala, and they found some prostitutes with syphilis, and they arranged for the prostitutes to have sex with prisoners in jail and also with patients who were in a mental hospital, to infect those patients and then give them penicillin to see if it worked. Now, sometimes the patients didn't get sick, so what they did was and this is really horrible, they took their arms and their penises and would abrade them, would sort of rough them up and pour the bacteria onto that skin. And then when that didn't work, they would sometimes just inoculate into the spine. They would do a spinal puncture and give the syphilis that way. And then they would try the penicillin to see how it worked. And let me read a little bit from the apology. It's just coming, today. This happened.
Hang on, this is a U.S. government we're talking about.
Correct.
Human guinea pigs.
Human guinea pigs,
All right.
sponsored by the U.S. government.
Cartoon Network, TNT, DC, and many other well-known brands. Guess who the largest shareholders of AT&T are? third one is the all-powerful News Corp. This company owns many of the most well-known national and regional newspapers, magazines and TV channels in the US, the UK and Australia. The shares of News Corp are owned by the American multi-billionaire Rupert Murdoch and by the institutional investors we see everywhere else. News Corp's sister company is Fox Corporation, which is also one of the most powerful media conglomerates on Earth. Just like News Corp, it is owned by the Murdoch family and the usual investors. Then the Walt Disney Company, a conglomerate of unimaginable dimensions, with many subsidiaries such as Pixar, Marvel, 20th Century, Lucasfilm, ABC, National Geographic, and Hulu. Who are their biggest shareholders? Another powerful media conglomerate is Comcast. This is the parent company of NBC, DreamWorks, Universal, the Sky Group, Focus Features, Xfinity, and many other major media brands. As you would expect, their largest shareholders are Vanguard and BlackRock. I could go on for hours and show that in almost every country on Earth, the local media is in the hands of these kind of conglomerates, which in turn are owned by our institutional investors or by extremely rich and powerful elite families.
Illumicorp's control of the American military is another impressive tool in our possession. We have nurtured these institutions lavishly to serve as the prototype for our global police force. When ready, our technology and manpower will dominate those who oppose the coming new world order.
By utilizing American patriotism, we have fostered in the American soldier the philosophy of peace through superior force. When the time is right, we will migrate that mentality towards the belief in a global government who must protect all people through superior force. We have used the American military-industrial complex to build the arsenal necessary to instigate the final cleansing outlined in Illumicorp's Great Plan. Our primary target will be Islamic nations who will never submit to our Western-centric domination. They also hold much of the remaining oil reserve of the planet. Illumicorp must own that precious resource, as it is crucial in maintaining our domination over the countries of the world.
Through Illumicorp's enormous federal funding of the military, we can develop new forms of warfare and population reduction. The public can't imagine what we were in the process of developing. Soon, even the weather will be a weapon under our control. We will be able to create droughts, floods, hurricanes, and even tsunamis with no fingerprints attached. The political system of America has been under direct control of Illumicorp for some time. It was actually a relatively easy acquisition, and has been even easier to manage. Politicians know of our unspoken agreement, and will do anything to stay in power.
A two-party system benefits Illumicorp in that it reduces all issues into a black and white debate. Through media, we can play side against side, using each where necessary to support our goals. Due to a diminishing faith in the system among the public, Illumicorp has designed a rogue candidate program to provide a voice for the dispossessed. This disperses the impetus for dissent among those who do not feel represented by our candidates and builds a database of potential dissidents.
At the turn of the last century, Illumicorp took a serious interest in public education. Our Supreme Council realized that by creating a private organization to dictate curriculum on a federal level, children could be conditioned into obedience on a mass scale.
In the interest of promoting Illumicorp principles in the classroom, hundreds of millions of dollars were invested to create the General Education Board in 1902. The result of doing this is evident today. The doctrines of public education have transformed recent generations into a weaker, more docile mass. Through meticulously planned curriculum, we have control over the process by which the average child learns. Thus we can mold them into obedient workers who are conditioned to accept the implementation of the Great Plan. In addition, Illumicorp has set up many associations, including the American Historical Association, that determine and uphold the official view of history. Knowledge is power, so we must at all costs be the authors of the truth. By writing history to suit our interests, dissenting voices cannot gain ground, and we can vastly influence culture to achieve our prime objective.
Illumicorp uses the media to shape the public's opinion about current events and condition desired attitudes about our future agenda. Through news, entertainment, and advertising, we can program a variety of emotions and responses into the collective unconscious.
In the past, we were limited entirely to print media, but now we have multiple mediums to utilize in programming and conditioning the masses. With cable news, we have directed the public to a more entertainment-based consumption of world events, infotainment. This medium is far more effective at subliminal reinforcement of desired attitudes towards our objectives. For instance, we are currently instilling a sense of duty towards environmental issues.
With our growing control of the weather through HAARP and chemtrails, we will scare the public into accepting our global protection agendas. We will then phase into the great cleansing which must occur to return the global population to a manageable size.
We reinforce the desired norm through advertising, creating a model for people to live up to that is virtually impossible. The result is an incomplete, desperate individual seeking acceptance. Through reality television game shows, we repeat the pattern of individual survival versus group survival. This breaks down the idea of community and breeds individuals who seek only their self-interest. With a public that is constantly suspicious and scheming, we maintain the status quo of a divided population that never thinks to look up.
Religion has served its purpose incredibly well. It is the oldest and perhaps the broadest form of social control utilized by Illumicorp. With religion, there is a written code of conduct that must be followed. The authors of the Holy Scriptures knew quite well how to lace that code with commands to maintain their dominance over the population. This system has survived through millennia to hold the flock together and bring us to today.
Admittedly, religion is losing its power for control. However, the fanaticism that has arisen due to this decline is particularly helpful to Illumicorp. Our invisible influence in the Church has helped bring the Christian fundamentalists out of the background. We control their opinions on current issues through policies designed and written right here at Illumicorp headquarters. They are sent to our ministers, who then preach the Word of God and their interpretations of the Bible to their followers. Their blind faith is used to transform them into willing soldiers to defend our cause during the catastrophes ahead. As the final phase is enacted, we will propagate end-time prophecy to convince them of their convictions.
The rise of Islamic fundamentalism works to Illumicorp's advantage as a threat that will demand violent action. In the coming years, planned terrorist attacks will warrant a full-scale retaliation and initiate the final phase of the Great Plan. Christians will support our actions, since they will believe them to be proof of the end times prophesied by Illumicorp's religious leaders. now that you have a basic understanding of how we work over here at LumaCorp, I would like to introduce you to one of our latest projects, the Control Grid. Since ancient times, it has been the desire of the Illumined to wield control of the masses below, both to protect us from them and them from themselves. The tools through the ages have been effective, but always blunt and inaccurate. But now, with the release of new technology to the masses, we have the real ability to implement a control grid with finance, industry, government, and military under our strict control. We can safely shift the population into a new world, monitored and controlled by LumaCorp.
Technology such as the internet, GPS, and RFID chips are pillars of the invisible prison we are erecting around the people. Within the decade, we will have real ID cards that contain criminal records and pertinent information, all linked to federal databases. Cell phones will tell us where each individual is, linked to the same database. Through intelligence agencies and Homeland Security, we will monitor individuals who oppose the Great Plan and remove them from the grid. Quickly, the population will learn that they have a choice: support the system and benefit from its luxuries, or reject it and lose access to the grid.
Well, that was quite an overview. I hope it gave you an understanding of our process and basic overall structure here at LumaCorp. Don't worry if you can't remember specific details at the moment. Once assigned to your administrative branch, you will be shown the second LumaCorp training module. Your initiate supervisor will brief you on your specific duties at that point.
Also, please review your copy of the Great Plan and the attached code word and symbols booklet. You will need to know the ways we communicate internally through public channels.
This concludes part 1 of the LumaCorp video training module. I wish you the best of luck, and may our plan complete in secrecy. The dawn of a new era is on the horizon, and it will shine gloriously over the new world.
Now that you're pretty much an expert on the New World Order, where are they today with their plan? This is going to outline that in detail, see exactly where they are, exactly what their plan is. You're going to see what Lockstep is, what the Great Reset is. You're going to see what Agenda 21 is. They're all basically the same thing. It's really not that complicated once you know everything. Australians have it pretty bad right now. Unfortunately, they're one of the best examples of the progress of their plan. Don't forget to check out the film, The Green Lie. It basically explains how electric cars, solar panel, and wind turbines are all terrible for the environment. I know it sounds crazy. Check this out as we come to the conclusion and wrap up News World Order.
Will exposure sites be put back in place, especially with reopening and people going back to pubs and stuff? Because our exposure sites still, will they be put back in place to be listed once we are reopening? Because they're not at the moment.
We will be looking at what contact tracing looks like in the New World Order. And yes, it will be pubs and clubs and other things if we have a positive case there. Our response may be different if we know that people are fully vaccinated. So we're working through a number of those issues, but we will have to reflect and learn.
The virus got it in a home situation, and we'll hear more detail about that in due course. But it is both a safe place and a dangerous place. We must treat this new world order, this new world of COVID, we must treat this new world of COVID, even in our own homes, with a high level of care and caution.
Have you heard about what's happening in Australia? Children are being taken from their parents to go get the shot. So for everyone who called us exaggerators for comparing our current reality to 1930s Germany, are our concerns starting to make sense now? Do you realize that a constant state of emergency only serves as an excuse for global tyranny? How did you think the Holocaust began? Did you think mass genocide starts with public hangings? Or does it start with the systematic disarming and segregation of public citizens? So to those people I ask, are you going to hide your children like they hid the Jews? Australia is now the test model for this martial law to be rolled out globally. Rather than locking down 100% of the population for an illness with a 99% survival rate, why don't the 0.2% people that are truly at risk of dying from the virus simply stay home? For all we care, you can wear your 5 cheetah masks, take your 57th booster shot. You don't need a government mandate to be a neurotic recluse. People really need to understand that it is our compliance which is causing this perpetual process of medical tyranny. Let's not forget that the end goal is the V-passport. Without the V-passport, absolute medical fascism cannot be established. Without the passport, they have no leverage over the people. Without the passport, they have no advantage and authority to dictate the basic aspects of our lives. So it's imperative that we understand that it is the passports that are most crucial to initiate the Great Reset. Without a papers, please social credit system in check, their New World Order just falls apart. And if that seems like too much of a conspiracy theory to you, please explain to me why globalist institutions like the World Economic Forum are so excited calling the pandemic an opportunity. An opportunity for what? This whole psychological operation was strategically created to make you exhausted. Exhausted to the point where you give in and take a shot. And it was James Madison who once said that if tyranny and oppression ever come to this land, it will come in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. And that foreign enemy in the 21st century just happens to come in the form of a foreign pathogen with a 99% survival rate. There is honestly no crueler tyranny than that which is perpetuated under the shield of the greater good for the greater number. So this is really just a friendly reminder that government officials aren't these benevolent leaders with your best interest at heart. They are power-hungry, perhaps semi-human creatures capable of any evil to pursue their sadistic agenda. Freedom and liberty are always just one generation away from becoming extinct. So don't bend, don't break, stand strong, do not comply. This is not about controlling a virus. It's about controlling you.
On behalf of our center and our partners, the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our audience here in New York, as well as our larger virtual audience participating online today. The Event 201 scenario is fictional. Today's scenario is going to simulate meetings of a multi-stakeholder group called the Pandemic Emergency Board.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
There's been some conspiracy theories that are around about the potential that pharmaceutical companies or the UN have released this for their own benefit.
And maybe this is a time for us to showcase some cases where we are able to bring forward some bad actors and leave it before the courts to decide whether they have actually spread some fake news.
A new coronavirus. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia.
In related news, a significant demand for personal protective equipment like N95 masks and gloves are on the rise. Patients are overwhelming healthcare facilities. People are avoiding public spaces out of fear of infection and in compliance with public health recommendations. Our U.S. affiliate has just released polling results on public expectations for a vaccine, and 65% of those polled are eager to take the vaccine, even if it's experimental.
I'm not optimistic about having the vaccine in time to be relevant during this pandemic.
With enough money and political will, anything is possible.
Penalties have been put in place for spreading harmful falsehoods, including arrests.
If the solution means controlling and reducing access to information, I
think it's the right choice.
What exactly are the risks and benefits of staying home from work? Absolutely, we need to save lives, but we literally cannot afford a heavy-handed response that suffocates our economy.
The world saw large-scale protests and in some places riots. This led to violent crackdowns in some countries and even martial law.
In 2010, the deep state had the Rockefeller Foundation script a plan to introduce martial law and a permanent method for total control of the citizenry. In this plan that they disguised as an academic scenario, as they called it, the method they would use to gain complete prison-like control of the entire population was to infect them with a devastating biological pandemic, and then, under the guise of protecting us from this threat, they would be free to implement their final solution, a prison state. The prison state that they need to keep their grip on power. Following is proof that the deep state is behind these viral pandemics. For the deep state to make an international pandemic isn't even a high-tech operation, it's a no-tech operation. It's easy. A simple vial of Ebola, SARS, MERS, Spanish flu, or coronavirus, or whatever they come up with in their secret bioweapons lab, is all they need to bring the world into their total control.
It's not only a great reset, it's a great deception. Replacing mum and dad, small businesses and private enterprises with big tech and big business. Democracy and free enterprise go out the window, totalitarian government control slides in through the back door. Those behind this scheme are adamant that there can be and never will be a return to normal, that life will never again be what it was prior to COVID. That is why they constantly talk about the new normal. The World Economic Forum meets every January in Davos. You will have heard of the expression Davos man. It refers to all the zillionaires and pop stars and popes and princes and politicians who meet every year to map out our futures. This year's Davos is very, very different to all the previous ones. The World Economic Forum, along with the United Nations, along with the International Monetary Fund, and along with any number of prominent globalist organizations and powerful individuals, including Prince Charles, together have jointly promised that the 2021 World Economic Forum will be used to introduce, via a vast network of connected big tech corporations, online activist movements and compliant local and national governments, something they call the Great Reset. This isn't some Sky After Dark fantasy conspiracy theory. It is a global commitment they have made to use the panic and fear generated by the coronavirus as a means to reshape all our economies and laws and move to a new form of capitalism that focuses on net zero emissions. You might think this is a great thing. You might think this is a terrible thing. If implemented successfully, the Great Reset will undeniably and deliberately have extreme and possibly dire repercussions for every single one of your constituents. Already, the Great Reset is being widely advertised on posters and in ads across the UK and Europe, and no doubt will be here before too long. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy is just one of their marketing slogans. The plan involves replacing shareholders of big companies with stakeholders who happen to be left-wing bureaucrats and climate change zealots. Replacing mum and dad, small businesses and private enterprises with big tech and big business. Mrs. Kafup's share portfolio is out, Greta Thunberg's zero emissions are in. Democracy and free enterprise go out the window, totalitarian government control slides in through the back door. But remember, it's not only a great reset, it's a great deception. Because in order to get everyday people to surrender many of the rights and freedoms we currently take for granted, the repeatedly stated aim of these organizations is to deliberately use COVID as an excuse, to use all the political and authoritarian tools, as Prince Charles puts it, that are currently being used around the world to eradicate the virus, such as lockdowns, exclusion zones, forced closure of businesses, heavy fines, making protesting illegal, and so on, but now to eradicate carbon emissions. Those behind this scheme are adamant that there can be and never will be a return to normal, that life will never again be what it was prior to COVID. That is why they constantly talk about the new normal. This is not me saying this. This is them saying it. The people with the power and the means and the obsessional desire to do it. And they keep telling us again and again precisely what they have in store.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate and rebalance our world. Rebalancing investment, harnessing science and technology, and advancing the transition to net zero emissions, all elements of the Great Reset, are fundamental to building the future we need.
And if it's still not clear, the book written by World Economic Forum boss Klaus Schwab himself, setting out precisely how the most powerful forces in the world are lining up to use the COVID-19 crisis as a pretext for introducing a new climate change-focused one world economy that will strip away property rights and basic democratic rights. They are not hiding this stuff, they are shouting it from the rooftops. The World Economic Forum boasts on its website that the only acceptable response to the COVID crisis is to pursue a great reset of our economies, our politics, and our societies.
To be truly effective, vaccines, treatments, and diagnostics must be affordable and accessible to all.
Equitable and universal access to vaccination, treatment, and diagnostics.
We must all work together on improving diagnostics, accelerating therapies, and ultimately developing a vaccine.
Everyone should have access to COVID-19 testing, treatment, and vaccines.
But the task will only be completed when vaccines, tests, and treatments are available and affordable to every child, women and men who needs them.
To support vaccines, therapeutics, diagnostics development, preparedness efforts, and humanitarian assistance.
On how to make vaccines, treatments, and diagnostics accessible to everyone.
In addition to investing into diagnostics, therapies, and vaccines.
So the race for a vaccine, for better treatments, for quick and reliable tests.
Impfstoffe, Tests und Medikamente müssen für alle Menschen auf der Welt verfügbar, bezahlbar und zugänglich sein.
COVID-19 research and development work on vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics and respiratory medicine.
To provide universal access for the anti-COVID drugs, tests and vaccine.
To make sure that everyone has access to treatment, to vaccines, to a strong health system.
To fight COVID-19. Vaccines, treatments and diagnosis will be the most effective way to do it.
Des moyens de diagnostic, de traitement et des vaccins.
Whether I should be able to access in vitro diagnostics like tests and therapeutics and vaccine.
For better diagnostic and therapeutic medical supplies. We must also ensure that there is access to better treatment and care in the global quest for a vaccine.
In ensuring development, production, and equitable delivery of COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines.
For vaccines, diagnostics, and health systems.
Has access to COVID-19 tests, treatments, and therapies.
COVID-19 tests, treatments, and vaccines, and strengthen our healthcare systems.
That the solutions for this pandemic are going to come from science, whether they're new diagnostics, new vaccines, or new therapeutics. So we're working with a number of partner agencies to try to develop a new vaccine for COVID-19.
As it ensures impartial access to diagnostics, treatment, and later on, vaccine against the disease.
Is needed to ensure access to COVID-19 tests, treatments, and vaccines for all.
To ensure that new COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics, and people's vaccine are safe, effective, and affordable.
For treatments, vaccines, and tests,
on equitable access to diagnostics, treatments and vaccines.
We need new diagnostics, vaccines, treatments, and an equal distribution to all.
We need to make vaccines, treatment and diagnostics accessible to everyone.
We can develop an effective vaccine, effective treatments, testing systems that work, diagnostics and therapeutics.
COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics and vaccines.
Of effective diagnostics, safe treatment and vaccines.
Diagnosis, treatment and vaccine development.
But you don't have a choice. People act like you have a choice. For the world at large, normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
I mean, and we're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the veins. We just shoot them right into the vein.
Reducing the population growth. Reducing the population growth. When we've largely vaccinated the entire global population. We all want to return to the way things were before COVID-19. But there's one area where I hope we never go back. Our complacency about pandemics. We can get ahead of infectious disease outbreaks. By the next pandemic, I believe we can have what I call mega testing diagnostic platforms. They can be deployed quickly, cost very little, and test 20% of the entire population every week. We also want to get treatments out far faster next time. One of the most promising is monoclonal antibodies. These manufactured antibodies grab onto the virus and disable it, just like your immune system, and can reduce death rates by as much as 80%. I also think that we'll develop new vaccines quickly, in large part due to this new mRNA platform. mRNA will become faster to develop, easier to store, and lower cost. That's a huge breakthrough. To stop future pandemics quickly, we need to be able to spot disease outbreaks as soon as they happen anywhere in the world. And that requires a global alert system. If there turns out to be some new infectious pathogen, then we need a group of infectious disease responders to spring into action.
It is and includes military maneuvers in the United States, military actions that are forthcoming, and that will be so deep and so penetrating that the United States will never be the same.
We have this map that shows how the U.S. would be divided in the event of an emergency, if we can pull that up there. There it is. So this is how the U.S. will be divided into districts. You see 10 of them there. This is according to the National Emergency Center establishment.
It gives FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security jurisdiction over what goes on in these places during a time of emergency.
Think of these as like pandemic firefighters. They're going to use their logistics, use their ability to build up capacity quickly. They're going to go wherever that problem is. Stopping the next pandemic will require a big investment. But I think of this as the best insurance policy the world could buy. You can read more about this in our annual letter.
The presidents of Burundi, Swaziland, Tanzania, Ivory Coast, and now Haiti have all been assassinated over the last few months. 5 presidents. It's not even on the news. All 5 of them were presidents that said the vaccine would never be allowed in their country.
انفلونزا بتاعت الخنازير وان شاء الله تجي كمان انفلونزا بتاعت الاسماك في المستقبل على اي حال ان المصانع تشتغل بتاعت المخابرات هذه اذا كانت هي تباع بثمن غالي معناها تجاره يصنعوا فيروس وينشروه في العالم باش الشركات الراسماليه تحصل اموال ببيع الاموال عيب هذا حرام عليكم الامصال لا تباع الدواء لا يباع اقروا الكتاب الاخضر لا يسمح ببيع الدواء الدواء لا يباع اعلنوا قولوا الدواء مجاني، الامصال مجانيه، مش حتنتشر الفيروسات لان يخلقوا فيها باش يعملوا امصال وباش تكسب منها الشركات الراسماليه. هذه معالجه خطا.
As a World War II historian, I am getting my PhD. I do find this to be a very interesting social experiment, and let me tell you why. If you did not receive Common Core education, you know that one of the questions we sit here and we talk about in history was, how did Hitler get an entire country to fall in line with him? And we are actually living that right now. We are watching the government and the biggest movers and shakers in society convince people to go along with something that they don't necessarily believe in. There are social pressures coming from family, from friends, from coworkers, from businesses. If you don't do the thing, then we're going to punish you. Which is fascinating because now we have an idea of what it might have been like living in Nazi Germany, being forced to comply if you didn't want to comply. I'm not a social historian, but this kind of data and this kind of information, watching it happen in real time, is absolutely priceless.
Holocaust survivor. Hi, my beauty.
Thank you very much. I am, in fact, a survivor of the Holocaust. And the first thing I have to tell you, that even then nobody told us it was done for our own good. We all knew what was happening. And when I think today, when I see people masked, I think of the Yellow Star, which gave everybody liberty to aggress me, to insult me, to call me a carrier of disease,
Oh, my love.
to spit on me even.
I love you.
I would like to tell you that this is worse. It is more insidious. It concerns more people. It is the old. I would love to die in a state that gives me freedom, than live in here. I have already outstayed my welcome by many years, and my life expectancy is probably not great, but I would gladly exchange this for the lives and livelihoods and happiness of generations that come after me, to live their lives as I have been. To have masks, to see people defile their children with masks is something totally unbearable to me.
You literally cannot mandate somebody to wear a mask knowing that that mask is killing people. It literally is killing people. And the people are waking up, and we know what citizen's arrest is, because citizen's arrests are already happening, okay? And every single one of you that are obeying the devil's laws are going to be arrested. And you, doctor, are going to be arrested for crimes against humanity. Every single one of you have a smirk behind that little mask, but every single one of you are going to get punished by God. You cannot escape God. You cannot escape God. I'm going to say that again. You cannot escape God, not even with the mask or 6 feet. Okay? 6 feet, like I said before, is military protocol. You're trying to get the people to train them so when the cameras, the 5G comes out, what? They're gonna scan everybody? We gotta get scanned.
Number 8, we will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. For years, Congress has required biometric entry-exit visa tracking systems, but it has never been completed. The politicians are all talk, no action, never happens, never happens. Hillary Clinton, all talk. Unfortunately, when there is action, it's always the wrong decision. Do you ever notice? In my administration, we will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking system.
We got to get temperatured. The kids have to go to school with masks. Are you insane? Are you crazy? I think all of you should be in a psych ward right the heck now, because none of you know what the hell you are all talking about. This is insane. And then you want to open this meeting with a prayer to God. Are you praying to the devil? Because God is not listening to that prayer, because all of you are practicing the devil's laws. What happened to Bill Gates? Why is he not in jail? Why is Hillary Clinton not in jail? Why are all of these pedophiles that are demanding you all to listen to their rules? Why are they not in jail? Oh, is it because you're part of them? Are you part of the deep state?
Your time has expired.
The deep state is going down. And if any of you are in the deep state, you're going down with it.
Incredibly brave, amazing doctor. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, please. And thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, my name is Dr. Christiane Northrup. I'm a board-certified OBGYN physician trained at Dartmouth Medical School, Tufts New England Medical Center. I'm a former clinical professor of OBGYN at the University of Vermont College of Medicine. I'm the author of 3 New York Times best-selling books, including Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, The Wisdom of Menopause, and Goddesses Never Age. I've done 8 highly successful public television specials. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show 10 different times, and all the numerous TV shows like Dr. Oz and Rachel Ray and NBC Nightly News and all of the rest of it, kind of straddling the world between holistic medicine and conventional OBGYN. And my entire career really has been about teaching women everything that can go right with their bodies and how to make that their experience.
This COVID vaccine, can you tell us what we do know about it and what you, from your experience, fear for the people that may take it?
Yes, there's never been a vaccine like this. It's an RNA vaccine. It is what's called a transinfection. It will fundamentally change people's DNA. And what I don't like about it, even more than the usual thing about the toxic metals that are in vaccines that make our bodies literally into an antenna with 5G, this one has the usual non-human DNA. Like, monkeys, maybe fetal cells, pigs, whatever. And so it begins to make us what's called chimers, C-H-I-M-E-R, introducing non-human DNA into our bodies. What is worse, though, is that there is a patent and work that they've done at MIT to make a dye, and the dye is called luciferase, and under a light, you'd be able to see who was vaccinated, who wasn't. And the deal is to store your biometric information, because this vaccine will have nanoparticles, nanocrystalline particles that are actually little robots, and they like little antennas, and they will have the ability to take your biometric data, not only your vaccine record, but your breathing, your heart rate, your activities, sexual activities, drugs that you're taking, where you travel, all of that, and then take that data and store it in the cloud. What's even more concerning is that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on March 26, 2020, applied for a patent number 060606, to take that biometric data, give you a barcode, and connect each of us to cryptocurrency so that we would become literally slaves
so the
to
patent
the
number
system.
Is actually WO 2020 060606 or World Order 2020 666. You can even see how they hyphenate it in the publication number. So World Order 2020 is not a stretch here. The publication date was March 26th and the international filing date was back on the 6th. Now, what this patent is for is going to blow you all away. It won't surprise you, as we all have been saying that this would be coming for years now. But what will surprise you is some of the wording within. Licensed by Microsoft, or better yet, Mr. Gates himself. It says here, human body activity associated with a task provided to a user may be used in a mining process of a cryptocurrency system. A server may provide a task to the device of a user which is communicatively coupled to the server. A sensor communicatively coupled to or comprised in the device of the user may sense body activity of the user. Body activity data may be generated based on the sensed body activity of the user. The cryptocurrency system communicatively coupled to the device of the user may verify if the body activity data satisfies one or more conditions set by the cryptocurrency system and award cryptocurrency to the user whose body activity data is verified.
Like everything, it would be the end of privacy, the end of freedom, because who gets the data? Who uses the data? And what do they do with it? So this patent to connect the vaccinated to cryptocurrency, making all humans a commodity, is extremely concerning. And everyone should be concerned, given that this is a virus from which 99.9% of people recover. So I would ask, why do we need anything like this? Because it goes far beyond those pandemics of old, smallpox and so on. This is very different. The plan here is to vaccinate the entire world. And the narrative that we're being sold is things will not go back to normal until everyone is vaccinated.
Have with us an incredibly brave, amazing doctor.
This is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. It is the inventory and control plan. Inventory and control of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. And this is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations back in 1992. It's a United Nations plan. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. And so many of us around the world think that, well, sustainable development, it just sounds so great. Isn't it about recycling and creative reuse and creating energy and food resources for everyone? And the answer is no, it really is not. It's about moving populations into city centers, concentrated city centers, and clearing them out of the rural areas. All systems have to be brought into harmony in order to control them all. Because when systems don't meet, when they're out of balance or not in sync with one another, they can't be controlled centrally. And the goal of Agenda 21 is one world government and total control from a central unit. Every nation that signed on to Agenda 21 has its local Agenda 21 plan. And people in the United States are completely unaware of this. If I go out and talk about this, the United States press attacks me and calls me, which is totally ridiculous. It is but it's not a theory. It's a fact. The three pillars of United Nations Agenda 21 are economy, ecology, and equity, the 3 E's. And everyone sort of thinks that they know what that means, the idea of social equity. It must mean that, well, everyone's going to have access to clean water and clean air, and no one's property is going to be used as a dumping ground because they are at a poverty level. But really what social equity is about impoverishing huge portions of the population and bringing down the developed nations. Everything that we're looking at now is destined to collapse our economies. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. And what major corporations want in this development is to be able to have full movement of workers without borders or boundaries, to be able to move their goods through without regulations, and to reduce wages. And so this is the goal. So this is what you find with social equity. And of course, economy and ecology is about, these are the 3 circles: economy, ecology, and social equity. And where they meet in the center is balance. But really that balance is a communitarian balance. So it's not balance of well-being of the people. What it is it's a balance for corporations so that they can exploit and control and have populations in an area, in tightly packed, dense areas, so that they can be surveilled and managed. And this is what that balance looks like as far as the development of a totalitarian state is. the mainstream media is owned by 5 major corporations, and you're not going to get this information from the mainstream press. So you need to be your own press. You need to educate yourself. You need to get out there and educate your neighbors, your community, your real community. You need to help your children understand that they're being indoctrinated from pre-kindergarten to postgraduate school. All of us have a responsibility to ourselves and to others. This is true community, to work for personal freedom. And always remember that even though we work as a group, if we do work as a group, we're all individuals in those groups, and we answer only to ourselves. And this is essential. It's essential as free human beings. This is what we are. We are free, and we need to continue to be free. And I do believe that we will win, but we have to become aware that there is a fight, and then make our friends and our neighbors and our community aware as well, and work together.
You know, we keep talking about government. This is not a government control issue. It doesn't really matter what laws we put out, because government can't enforce any of these laws, right? We have a regulation. You must wear a mask. How do I make 19 million people wear a mask? I can't. I couldn't make that one fella who I ran into wear a mask, right? Everything we're doing is basically voluntary on behalf of people, right? State government, local government, federal government doesn't have the power to enforce stay-at-home orders. If 19 million people said, I'm going out today, they would go out.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good.
You know, all the rhetoric you used to hear, the 1,000 points of light. What the hell was that, by the way? 1,000 points of light. What did that mean? 1,000 points of light. I never quite got that one.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
The ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers. And they want to create a new currency called the Amero, right? And the whole agenda is to create a one world government where everybody has in those chips.
Pyramids. At the peak of the pyramid, you've got a tiny, tiny few people who know everything there is to know about that organization. They know its real agenda, its real motivation, where it's really seeking to go.
To perform effectively as a new world order, you have to have a commonality of countries. You can't have the separation of countries, the distinct separation that we have now. I think that the way that they will do this is they will slowly, and very slowly, but very precisely, enact little pieces of legislation, but I think you'll see these little tags that are put on legislation will affect us for the rest of our lives.
Anyway, this is the wish list in documents for Agenda 21, an end to national sovereignty, state planning and management of all land resources, ecosystems, deserts, forests, mountains, oceans and fresh water, agriculture, rural development, biotechnology, and ensuring equity equals slavery.
Well, instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. Total control. Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything.
The further you come down from that pyramid peak in any organization, you're meeting more and more and more people who know less and less and less about what that organization's agenda really is. They only know their part in it. They call it compartmentalization.
Let's go back to 1776, May the 1st. Adam Weishaupt was commissioned by the Rothschild family to set up the goals to control and take over the world with a one world government.
You want to trace back all the wars and bloodshed and all the corruption going on around the world? You want to go back to the people who are really doing this stuff all around the world to us? The Vatican. You can bet on it. That's why Hollywood is making movies like Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code, and they're talking about the Vatican and all the occult stuff. Let me tell you something.
They want a one world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people, and you become a slave, you become a serf to these people. That's their goal, that's their intention.
The banking system is a pyramid. So is the media, so is the secret society network of the world, so is the multinational corporation network. And at the peak of their pyramids, they fuse into one global pyramid peak.
The state is to define the role of business and financial resources. Abolition of private property is not sustainable, they say. Here we go again. How many times has this come up? Restructuring the family unit. Children to be raised by the state. People told, this is what Aldous Huxley said in Brave New World, people told what their job will be.
If you look at the pyramid, where is the power in the pyramid? We've been conned and conditioned and programmed to believe that it's up there. It is not. That's up there because the rest of the pyramid, us, are holding it up there, and that's the only reason it exists.
And Rome has been ruling Europe for almost 2,300 years. The Vatican has been ruling Europe for at least 1,600 years. All of the royalty and celebrities, they rule by divine right, right? Well, where do you get the divine right from? You get it from the Holy Father. God didn't give you any divine right. Nobody's talked to God lately. You don't need to talk to God. The Vatican will decide if you are one of their boys. And if you're one of their boys, the Pope will then, bless you like they did Michael Corleone and the Godfather 3 and with the sword and all that kind of thing. And now you are divinely appointed. By who? By the Pope.
Major restrictions on movement, creation of human settlement zones, I'll get to them in a minute, mass resettlement as people are forced to vacate land where they live for reasons I'm coming to, dumbing down education, achieved a long time ago, mass global depopulation in pursuit of all of the above.
And Weizsäcker came up with 25 goals. Among these goals were control the press, corrupt the youth through sex and drugs, elect our own people meaning the Illuminati.
Weather modification programs, experimental ones done by private companies, done by the United States government, done by states across the United States. These programs impact agriculture, and there are programs around the world. International corporations are modifying our weather all the time, and they're modifying it in ways that cover thousands and thousands of square miles. Most of it is chemically altered.
And what they're doing to hide it is they're setting Agenda 21 organizations up in all local communities all over the world, America, Britain, all over the place, and they're giving the impression that each of these is basically an independent local community initiative when it's all being orchestrated through this organization, through the United Nations, called Local Governments for Sustainability.
The people at the Vatican, and the Vatican represents a very powerful secret society that's been in operation in the Roman Empire long before the Vatican ever existed. It's referred to as a sun order. Sun was always represented as an eagle. The eagle always represented the sun. Now, eagles only have two wings, left wing and right wing. So that's why you always have a division between the left wing and right wing in politics and religion, because you need 2 feet. Yeah. You need to walk through this world on 2 feet.
In another of his prophetic books, because he knows what's coming, called America's Role in the Technotronic Era, 1970, the Technotronic Era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities.
That the American government has created weather tampering techniques so that the New World Order will be able to starve millions of Americans and to control the rest.
Trials. It happened in the 1980s when hundreds of children accused teachers at the preschool of sexually abusing them. The accusations got more and more bizarre as kids started talking about satanic rituals, witnessing animals being mutilated, and being taken into secret underground tunnels underneath the school which led to other places. Children named professional football players, baseball players, politicians, and actors as perpetrators. A group of the parents teamed up with FBI agent Ted Gunderson. Gunderson was a senior special agent in charge of the FBI Los Angeles division at the time. Page 49 of the FBI release shows that they found multiple tunnels, a Disney bag with copyright 1982 written on it, a plate with a pentagram hand-drawn on it, no doorknobs on classroom 3, only a deadbolt lock. This was one of the classrooms above a tunnel. Fire alarm switches that didn't connect to a fire station, but were used at school. More than 2,000 artifacts under the school floor, including over 100 animal bones. Page 48 shows a map of the school with 2 tunnel entrances.
Respected law enforcement professional, recently or retired now from the FBI, former regional director of Los Angeles. Do you, sir, believe that these dreadful allegations of babies being sacrificed, do you, sir, believe that these dreadful allegations of babies being sacrificed are true?
I absolutely believe it, without any doubt. Based on the information that's been given to me across the country by numerous survivors and by confidential sources and informants.
Then why don't you name these people and arrest them? Never a name, never an arrest. These women come out of a group and they insist that they know the people in the group.
Police officers don't believe it. I may believe it. You may believe it. Some people in your audience may believe it. They don't believe it. Number two, if you decide to investigate these people, you have to, number one, handle it from an undercover operation. If you put an undercover operation into effect, then you have, in a sense, your own police officers become involved in these heinous crimes, and they are, of course, become murderers. And in addition to that, if you do decide to investigate these people, there's a lot of work.
That's on here that's asking me, did I sell my soul? Why the f y'all on here if y'all think I sold my soul? Y'all coming right with me, you dummies.
But you gonna focus on that money. You gonna love and cherish the money. Once you love and cherish the money and you'll do anything to get the money, then that's when you sold your soul, my brother.
I want to get out this music industry because this is not for me. But I do it because I feed my family. But I don't want to be in this. This is not what God wants me to do.
I sold my soul to the devil, I'll never get it back. I sold my soul to the devil for a strong price.
I sold my soul to the devil.
And I'm done with the devil.
I kind of get possessed by the devil when I'm performing. And I'm like, if you don't get this right now, I swear to Lucifer.
You're still out here doing these songs, you know, you're still on tour.
I do, but I don't take it for granted.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I mean, I made a bargain with it, you know, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my hand.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
So that's how I feel about that, bro. You know what I'm saying? Straight up. Cause the devil gonna make you do some crazy shit for that money. Straight up. And once you start working for the devil, you sow your soul, you feel me? Straight up. That's how that shit goes.
God don't want me to do this, but I do it to feed my family. And I want to get out this. I want to get out of the music industry because yes, you go through pain, you go through this because this is what the devil wants you to go through to destroy yourself.
Baby, only 20 bills. Spent the night in Utah in a cave up.
Who wants to pray to the devil with me?
Set out and run, but I take my time. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And on this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
I swear I wanted to be like the Amy Grant of music. Yeah. But it didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
All the good girls go to hell.
People sell their souls to this devil because of money, and he really does give them money. But at the end of the contract, that's why Jesus said, what would it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul?
All right, so when you went there, the friend who took you there, what were you supposed to get from that particular shop?
So,
in particular, that was going to help your career grow.
Yeah, so Crystal took me to that shop, and what she said was, this man is going to initiate you, he's going to baptize you into the brotherhood. And then after he baptizes you, things are going to start going your way.
When you left prison and you got out and you started chasing fame and chasing clout, and then eventually you did chase money, do you feel like in that process you sold your soul at all?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. No doubt about it. Hell yeah.
Oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Oh, I have to put it over here.
The baby has been able to latch, but I've not been able to produce any milk. It's okay, because we're gonna supplement the feeding with formula so that my baby's still getting the nutrients that they need.
And it goes a little something like this. That's fucked up. And if that makes me a bigot, well then what's up? I'm cool with whatever you identify with, but I'll tell you right now, I ain't getting behind this. You can hate me and accuse me as crazy and come up with a bunch of different dumb excuses to say to me, but no matter what you think about this dude and this lady, that's straight up sexual abuse of a baby. Just because your nipples look like milk duds doesn't mean you'll be able to produce any milk from them. It's a baby, of course it's gonna latch to your udder. It doesn't know the fucking difference between the dad and the mother. You already admitted that the kid ain't getting nothing, but you keep on doing it, and to me that's sick and disgusting. It doesn't benefit shit, there's no nutritional value no matter how long that baby sucks on your nipples. So how about you just stop? It ain't a frickin' project, you can't fuck up and tell the teacher that you didn't drop it. Your kid's licking hair and sweat off a bare chest, and I'm gonna question you to his parents? Yes, of course I am. This is way past politics, no matter if you're left or right, this is bad, all of it. We used to care about the young and look out for their safety, now as long as we're happy, fuck them, they don't count, they're babies. The man's a woman and the woman's a man, but the man had the baby cause only a woman can. And as soon as he gave birth and the baby came out, they switched back. See, do you hear how fucking crazy I sound? Ain't it funny? The ones who say follow the science seem to be the same ones that always defy it. I'm sorry if I get it wrong, it's complicated stuff. It's like we're all bored and now we're starting to make shit up. How far are we gonna let this go? That's an honest question. You can let me know below in the comment section. I believe you should be who you wanna be, cause this is the land of the free, but that's the wrong direction. That video was fucked up. I'll say it loud. If you think that's okay, fuck you, I'll say it proud. I'm just looking out for the baby, but watch, this is gonna be the video that ends up being taken down. But that's the world we live in, and this is what we get. A man's nipple and a baby's pucker lips. There's absolutely no point of doing it, it's sick. I mean, at that point, you might as well let it suck your dick. Forget it.
Well, that wraps up the series. I really hope you enjoyed it. A lot of work went into this. Please support our cause, vtvault.org/donate. Send any way you can so we can continue to create awesome videos like this that will wake everybody up. Send this to everybody. Everybody's gonna love this. The people who have no idea this is going on, it's outlined clearly. It's coming out of their mouths. It's so clear, so amazing. We're so proud of this. Thank you so much for watching. Please donate if you can. $1 helps. Thanks so much. Stay safe and resist as long as you can. Golden Knowledge out.